Oh my gosh, welcome back to another week of A Man's Mind. Today I want to have a quick conversation with you. I was having tacos with a friend, and we had a challenging intellectual debate about the dragon. You've heard the saying, slay the dragon, slaying dragons. It's in mythology. It's in a lot of Joseph Campbell's work, the comparative mythologist. He made the hero's journey, Hero with a Thousand Faces, which has since been adopted by many storytellers, especially Hollywood. Now, slaying the dragon. In this conversation, we're referring to maybe your demons or your dragons, that which is in the cage metaphorically, and it represents sort of a trauma or a narrative or something that's stuck with you that drives you to be who you are and how you feel about a certain something. So let's say you grew up and you didn't have the best relationship with your father. He was angry at you and now you resent him and you have not forgiven him. Whether he is alive or not, this challenge applies. So if your resentment and your anger towards your father equals the dragon in this conversation, let's dive in. So why does this matter? I think it really matters because there's a couple scenarios. One, these dragons dictate our lives, and people have varying philosophies on whether you set them free or slay them or tame them or keep them in a cage. We'll get into that. And then I think what really matters that we'll get into is closure or forgiveness. And can we do that whether they are alive or not? So in having this conversation with a friend of mine, he was saying he had a strained relationship with his father. He's angry towards him, he resents him, and that's sort of his dragon. So that dragon, when it breathes fire, that's the anger that my friend is experiencing. And my friend finds it healthy, beneficial, soothing, releasing, all the adjectives related to expressing this anger, whether it's through conversation, a punching bag, or chopping wood. Listen, I love chopping wood. It feels great. Where that fuel comes from is what we're referring to today. Instead of letting that dragon breathe fire, which is the anger that you're expressing, I believe, coming from engineering and root cause analysis, if we keep the dragon in the cage and we learn ways to effectively release the fire, the dragon's still there. It's an infinite source of fire, and we're essentially always going to be angry and resentful and whatever that represents to us. I said to my friend, what if you instead set the dragon free? It's one less source of fire. It's one less cage you got to carry around in this soul of yours or wherever they sit. I'm not sure. And they said, yeah, but letting go of that, whether it's talking to you or talking to a friend, or like I said, chopping wood, it feels good. It makes me feel like I can express that anger and then go have the conversation or at least be around my father. But I'm thinking, yeah, and sort of tolerate them. It's not a solution. I want to challenge you to think about this differently. Managing the fire is not a long-term solution because you're always going to be tolerating them when you're with them. Wouldn't you rather appreciate them for all their flaws? Wouldn't you rather honor the dragon that they presented to you, which caused you to become the person that you are if you use that anger to motivate you in your career and your life? Yeah. Think about closure and forgiveness. They sort of play hand in hand in this context. Now, let's say you have a strained relationship with your father. I think it's important to remember that forgiveness doesn't mean you're advocating nor defending what they did. It doesn't mean that what you think they did was okay. And I think that's what keeps a lot of you back from forgiving. To me, forgiving is simply accepting that it happened and accepting the human that did it. Now, granted, there are crimes and there are unforgivables. I understand that. Hang with me here. I'm referring to maybe the love they didn't give you, maybe the choice they made that made you feel abandoned. Let's stay in that realm for the sake of this. Let's just focus on the logic. And let's also remember, guys, that our fathers had fathers. And it's easy to assume on paper that if we're mad at them for the love they didn't give us, it's a safe bet they didn't get it themselves. And we all know it's pretty hard to do and teach that which was not taught to us. So I understand maybe you're mad or angry or whatever you have. I'm not trying to tell you how to live. I'm just trying to share a method, a possibility, a philosophy that someday, if you get to the point where you can forgive them and release them and have grace and realize they're a human that makes mistakes because they weren't given what you weren't given. If you can forgive equals simply accept that they are a flawed human and they made mistakes, and maybe they feel bad about it, but they can't lay on their own sword. That's another video. They can't lay on their own sword and honor and accept the shame that comes with that. They are a flawed human being. If you can forgive them, again, equals accept that it happened, then you can have grace and empathy. And if you have to be around them, and if you're going to be around them, instead of tolerating them, they're just there. I think it was Shakespeare that quoted, being angry at someone is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. I'm telling you this, not to necessarily give them grace to make them feel better. I'm telling you this because I truly believe that if you forgive them and you release that anger, you will be a better person. You will find more peace and you'll become a better leader for your family and those around you. And it's important to understand that you can maintain the lessons. You are not suddenly going to break if you forgive and you let go of that dragon because it's made you who you are. You're not going to lose yourself. I do think it's common for people to think, oh, well, if I forgive, if I let go of that tension, that anger is that tension on which many of us have built our identities. If you lose the anger, you're not going to lose who you are. Though I will challenge and say, if that's your only fuel source, you are going to have to find another one. So be prepared for that. And if you're ready for that journey, be prepared to find another source. Because it's been really easy to tap into anger. For me, for a long time, it was ego and identity and the charisma and all the bullshit, frankly. It didn't mean anything. And as soon as I got tired of that, I fell flat on my face and had to find a new source. And this is my source. It's service. Forgiveness does not equal that you advocate nor defend. Forgiveness equals acceptance. Acceptance equals grace. Acceptance equals peace, equals closure. Let's play with sort of the rules of the universe, the rules of the game, simulation theory, whatever your philosophy is, whatever you want to call it. I always think of knots. When I'm trying to figure something out, think of the knot, the opposite. If you've seen the planes study, they brought the planes back, they found the planes with all the holes, and they realized they need to put more armor where the holes were not, because where the holes were not is where the holes were with the planes that didn't come back. So look for what's missing. So with this example, think of it this way. Do you think it's impossible to find closure with a person who is dead? And the way to break that is to say, well, does that mean that you're stuck with this thing for the rest of your life because they died? I don't believe that. You can get closure when someone is alive. Maybe you have the conversation and they say just the right thing to make you go, huh. However, if you consider the fact that they said a thing that you wanted to hear, that you then gave yourself permission to have closure. You're giving yourself closure. You're asking them to say a thing so that you in turn give yourself permission. And that is different for everyone. However, I have found closure without actually speaking to this person because they were dead. You're not stuck with whatever this thing is. Closure comes from you. It's whatever you need to do to get the permission to do it.